Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. In tonight's video, we'll just be going around asking questions. I'll be taking answers here from the chat room. We'll go through a bunch of things. We'll look at all the news. Today was busy. Thursday was very busy. If you are new, you should definitely subscribe, hang out with us. But I put in a bunch of news updates here in the chat. So I'm just going to kind of read through a bunch of these. For tonight's game, no Marlon Mack, no T.Y. Hilton, I guess if that's important. No Corey Davis. So I think you're going to like Elijah Moore. You're going to like Jameson Crowder. And, of course, Michael Carter. But we got a bunch of things here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire not being designated to return quite yet. The Bears' Damian Williams did not practice today, so that's interesting. Kadarius Toney limited with that thumb. I think he's going to be good to go. The Giants are really dinged up at wide receiver, so they kind of need him to play. CeeDee Lamb had an ankle sprain yesterday in practice. Today he did not practice. We'll see what happens on Friday. Hopefully he can go. Taysom Hill finally got a full practice in after he had a concussion a long time ago, so I don't know what the issue is. But Taysom Hill practicing on Friday. I think if you play in Superflex leagues, you're going to want to try to get Taysom Hill on the end of your bench. He should have been picked up by now. We'll see. But if you play in one QB leagues, he's probably a guy that if you need a quarterback too, put him on your bench and see what happens. No Sterling Shepard. He's probably going to be out for the next few weeks. He did not practice this week with a quad injury. We probably won't see him for a while. Zay Jones is probably the guy to replace Henry Ruggs. Carlos Hyde. So this one's interesting. If you need the Jaguars running back, Carlos Hyde upgraded to a full practice today. James Robinson missed another day of practice. So no practice Wednesday or Thursday for J-Rob. Deebo Samuel. The 49ers are interesting because Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell both not really practicing quite yet. Deebo with the calf strain, he was on the stationary bike to begin practice. Did not practice yesterday. I think they can call him limited. But we're watching the health of Deebo and Elijah Mitchell. I think both guys are going to play. Julio Jones, limited practice today on Thursday. Kenny Gallaudet, this is his first practice since week 5, so he's on track. I don't know if he's going to play this week. Usually you want to see players with a full week of practice before they play, so he's questionable for this week. I think if you have Kenny Gallaudet, I'll leave him on my bench. Let him prove it to us. Sam Darnold remained limited on Thursday. We still don't know if he's going to be starting or if it's going to be P.J. Walker. Then you got Latavius Murray. This is interesting because the Ravens had a bye last week and no Latavius Murray yet, so I'm leaning towards him not being of use this weekend. You're probably going to want, if you're going to use any Ravens back, it's Devonta Freeman. Sammy Watkins returning to practice finally. Christian McCaffrey, this is an interesting topic because he's finally able to start practicing. He was limited today. It sounded like he was just kind of riding a bike and doing some limited things. I personally am not expecting to see him play this Sunday. Typically, when a player returns from that 3-week IR, they want him to practice for a full week, and then you have that weekend game. They'll rest him for that game, and then the following week, we'll see him progress more, get some full practices, and then play. So I still think week 10 is probably the McCaffrey return, but who knows? We'll see. And again, here's the thing. If McCaffrey is playing, we'll probably know about it on Saturday because he'll have to be officially restored to the roster. So they would have to make a transaction, some kind of move, pull somebody down to put McCaffrey back up. So Saturday, we should know pretty soon on CMC. This one's interesting. The Bears were able to activate David Montgomery's return to practice window. And they're actually sounding like he could play Monday night. I don't know if I trust it. I don't really want to wait and see. It's Monday night, so that usually sucks having to wait. So unless you have a really, really weak option behind you and you want to wait for David Montgomery, I would say to use him. But otherwise, I'm probably, even if he does play, I'm gonna try to lean and get my guys in on Sunday. Cole Beasley not practicing. He didn't practice yesterday either, so this is kind of a red flag for me. We'll see what he does on Friday. But so far, that's a little bit of an eyebrow raise. Devontae Adams is back from the COVID list. I think he'll be just fine with Jordan Love. McCarthy saying Tyron Smith is not expected to play against the Broncos. You've got David Culley, Tyrod Taylor is going to start, DeAndre Hopkins, and Kyler Murray both not practicing. So a ton of news today, and we got some questions now. What's going on, Hammy? Thanks for hanging out tonight. Should I be worried about Matthew Stafford this week? I'm not going to be worried about Matthew Stafford this week. I think everything's going to be just fine, unless you'd have to have a rock solid, really good option. But otherwise, Matthew Stafford this week against Tennessee, it's a fun matchup there, and it's at home, SoFi Stadium. So I think we're going to see a good Matt Stafford game this week. Good evening, Justin. And yeah, Mike White night, baby. We'll see what he can do. The way that this Jets offense is going to run, it's going to be heavy again, last week, I think Mike White's average depth of target was like 4.3. So he's looking like a guy that's just going to kind of use Jamison Crowder, Elijah Moore, and just dump it off to Carter and Ty Johnson when he can. So I'm excited about it. We'll see if the Colts defense is up for the task of cutting off the underneath stuff. And Justin says he's going against Mike White and Carter. Very unfortunate. They're kind of like a little deadly duo. We'll see here. I think the Colts defense. Let me just double check real quick. The Colts defense, and I'm not doing a screen share tonight. I'm just looking at my my fantasy points allowed by position here. And the Colts, they're one of the best teams against the running back. So they don't allow. They've only allowed 3 running back touchdowns through 8 games. They really limit the receiving running back. So like it's a tough matchup for the Jets running back. So if you are starting Carter, maybe just expect a floor of 8 to 10 PPR points. I don't know who to vote for, fantasy or my yep. Khalil Herbert or Boston Scott. Okay. This one's pretty simple to me. All this rumbling of David Montgomery potentially playing on Monday night makes me nervous. And because you have let's see, they play the Chargers at home. The Chargers are one of the worst run defenses. They've allowed 10 touchdowns so far, 9 rushing, 1 through the air. So I'm feeling pretty good about Boston Scott in this one, whereas Khalil Herbert, it's a tough matchup, not only on the road at Pittsburgh, but he's also got to deal with potential David Montgomery return. So I think it's Boston Scott. I didn't see the Matthew Stafford news. Let me just look at my practice reports real quick. Matthew Stafford did not practice with a back injury on Wednesday, and Thursday I'm assuming he did not practice as well. Let me just double check that real quick. The Hammy, do you have yeah, so I'm seeing no practice Wednesday or today. Do you have a good backup quarterback? I guess we can wait this out and see if he practices on Friday. It's saying it's just a sore back. Here's the quote that I got. Coach Sean McVay said Stafford has a sore back, but he's fully expected to play Sunday night against the Titans. So I'm not too concerned. This might just be kind of like a veterans week off kind of thing. If Stafford says something's kind of bothering him, they're not going to stress it. So I think he's going to be fine as long as he plays. I want him in my lineup. And Taysom Hill, okay, that's kind of fun. Interestingly enough, Taysom Hill's last season, I think he played the Falcons twice, and he had good days. So if we wake up on Sunday and we see Taysom Hill is named the starting quarterback, let me read you the stats from last year. Taysom Hill threw for 233 yards. He also added 49 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns against the Falcons. And then he played against them 2 weeks later, 232 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 83 rushing yards. So he had some big games against the Falcons. So I guess if we get any more kind of rumblings that we're nervous about Stafford and Taysom Hill is cleared, I think I'm okay with it. He's going to add, that 50-some yards of rushing. So I'm kind of into it. And it really depends if you're feeling risky. But otherwise, that Stafford matchup against Tennessee, that's one of the best matchups for the quarterback. Let me just look real quick. Against the quarterback, the Titans are allowing, assuming with 4-point passing touchdowns, they're allowing about 20.32 fantasy points. The Falcons are even worse. They're allowing just under 21 fantasy points. So they're both good matchups either way. So we'll see what happens. Should I play Mixon in PPR? He gets me nervous, but does good. Mixon should be like Mixon's a top 5 back, man. You got to get Mixon in the lineup. And Joe Mixon playing against the Cleveland Browns this weekend, even though it's a tough matchup, I mean they still allowed 7 touchdowns to running backs. They're a little bit stingier on yards, but either way, like Mixon, he's going to get 20 touches in this game, so you want to try to get those touches in your lineups. But let's keep the questions rolling here. This is fun. We're probably going to hang out to a little bit after 7 here, so we got another 20 minutes, half hour left. Continue to fill in and get some questions in. If I start Scott over Herbert, who do you go at flex, Herbert or Higgins? I'm going T. Higgins. This one's pretty easy for me. The Bengals playing against the Cleveland Browns. Against the wide receiver, the Browns give up the 14th most wide receiver fantasy points here, 9 receiving touchdowns. So I'm feeling pretty good about T. Higgins. I think he's got a safe enough floor. And then with Herbert, I like Khalil Herbert a lot. They are playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers defense is not as great as it once was, but I'm still thinking rookie quarterback. on the road at Pittsburgh. I'm not excited about it. Steelers have only really given up two rushing touchdowns all season. It's a tough matchup. I'm going to roll with Higgins, and I think Boston Scott. Lost Rodgers. My options half PPR: Love, Carr, Cousins, Fields, Mike White, Tyrod. Mike White's kind of fun, but I don't know if I want to make you do that. I think the name that sticks out the most is probably Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins. Let me just do some due diligence real quick. And you play half PPR. I'm assuming that's 4 point for passing touchdowns. So Derek Carr at the New York Giants and Kirk Cousins at Baltimore. Let me just look at fantasy points allowed real quick to the quarterback. So the New York Giants, middle of the road, they in 4 point passing touchdown leagues. And assuming, so the math that I do here is for my leagues, 25 passing yards equals 1 point. So if you're kind of in the same format here, the Giants allow about 18.65 quarterback points per game, whereas the Ravens kind of the same thing. They're about 18.82. So they're both good matchups. I'm probably going to go with Derek Carr here. I think I have a good feeling the Raiders are going to probably play some inspired ball, and the Giants are just not that intimidating. They've allowed 15 passing touchdowns. So for me, I'm going to say Derek Carr. Me being a Packer fan, I'd love to say Jordan Love here, but I think Derek Carr probably is your best bet. Yep, Mike White. I'm rolling with Jordan Love, man. I'm rolling with Jordan. It feels weird. The Mike White feels. I don't know. I don't want to call it a 1 week wonder, flash in the pan, but you put all that on tape. The Colts are going to be sitting on underneath stuff all night. They have a good pass rush. It's at Indianapolis as well. I'm a little bit. I'm hesitant to say start Mike White. So score prediction for tonight. All right, I'm feeling really good vibes on Jonathan Taylor. He's getting a touchdown, maybe 2 tonight. Carson Wentz is usually good for at least 1 to 2 touchdowns. So I think the Colts the Colts are scoring 3 touchdowns. It really depends on that 4th one. So the Colts are going to put up an easy 21, maybe add on a field goal or 2. So somewhere in that 24 to 27 range for the Colts. And then the Jets. I think the Jets are going to struggle on offense here, as Mike White is probably going to be introduced to some of the pass rushers on the Colts pretty quickly. So I'll give the Jets 17. I'll give them 2 touchdowns and a field goal, maybe 2 field goals at the most. So I'm going to say 27-17 Colts. I'm starting the Colts defense too. Maybe that's biased, but it feels good for the Colts. They had a bad taste in their mouth from last week. I'm streaming Tyrod in too many leagues. I like Tyrod this week. Just looking at the fantasy points allowed, if you add up all the positions, QBs, running backs, receivers, and tight ends, the Dolphins allow the 2nd most total points. So Tyrod Taylor is going to be useful with his legs. Miami gives up about 22 fantasy points per game to the quarterback position. So it's not a bad spot, to get Tyrod in some super flex lineups for sure. How do you feel about Thielen's matchup this week? So going up against Baltimore, the way it looks like teams are giving Justin Jefferson the top corner every week. So that's going to be Marlon Humphrey. The Ravens against the wide receiver position right now, they are kind of middle of the road. It looks like they give up the 22nd most PPR points to wide receivers. They've only allowed 5 touchdowns. They've given up 86 catches and almost 1,200 yards. So if you're looking at the Ravens, they're allowing about 34 PPR points to the wide receiver. And with the Vikings, they basically only have 2 receivers to throw the ball to. So 34 divided by 2, 17 or so points here. I do like Adam Thielen, especially if they're focusing on taking away Justin Jefferson. Thielen's going to be probably the better. I think Thielen's the better play than Jefferson this week. I play Wentz and JT tonight. I'm scared. Well, so for you want to root for that Colts defensive touchdown or any kind of non-Wentz JT scores tonight. If you can get a pick 6, if you can get any kind of return, you want to limit those points on the offense here. But the Jets are going to be pesky. It wouldn't surprise me to see them stick. I think the Jets are probably going to play a pretty sticky first half. We'll see if the Colts can pull away. But Wentz and JT, that's a tough night tonight. We'll see. You like the Fins defense. I'm nervous about the Dolphins, man. That's been through all the questions that I've gotten this weekend. The Dolphins defense has probably been the most popular. Should I stream the Dolphin defense? it's really tough for me to say yes, just because they're one of the worst defenses in the league. I know it's at home against Houston, but to me this kind of feels like. Do you guys remember the first 2 weeks? We saw Tyrod Taylor come out and beat the Jaguars. He played the Browns really well too. So for me, I'm trying to avoid the Dolphins defense. If you had to pick somebody up, there's probably some better options out there, but I think I'm trying to avoid the defenses, Miami and the Houston Texans. Yo, what's up? Tua versus Texans or Wentz versus Jets today? I'm gonna go with Tua versus the Texans. The Texans are one of the worst teams, giving up over 20 fantasy points per game to the quarterback position here. Wentz has a nice safe floor, right? He's going to get you 15, 16, 17 points. But oddly enough, the Jets are kind of a funnel defense where they're actually okay against the quarterbacks. They've actually allowed only 9 passing touchdowns on the season here. So they're stingier against QBs. They let the running backs get the point. So I think Jonathan Taylor is probably going to be the biggest play tonight. So I'm going to go with Tua. I'll wait for the points. There's something about weird Thursday night games that I try to, if I can play a guy on Sunday, I'd rather play him on Sunday than Thursday night, unless the matchup's too good. Do I think we should pick up Chris Carson? I have McNichols, Boston Scott, and Antonio Gibson. Carson's out there? That's interesting. I mean, I do think Gibson, McNichols, and Boston Scott need to be rostered. Harris, because I know you play mostly non-PPR. That's been the bulk of your questions. I personally would rather have Chris Carson in a non-PPR league over McNichols. So if you had to cut somebody, I'm probably cutting McNichols, just because again he's purely a PPR guy. Carson coming back maybe next week. It sounds like he's itching to practice, so I like that. And you have the Colts kicker as well. It's probably a good kicker night for the Colts. I could see 2-3 field goals in there for sure. Pittman, man. Pittman's been the real deal. I'm disappointed I didn't get him in more leagues. I think I only got him in like 1 of 5 leagues. But Pittman is playing really, really well. And again, so let me just read the Jets real quick. So the Jets against the wide receiver, they're actually giving up. So when I say like if I say a team is giving up the first most points to wide receiver, that's going to be the Titans at the top. The Titans allow about 47 points per game to the wide receivers. The Jets allow the 27th most, so they're actually kind of stingy against wide receivers just because teams have been running the ball so well against them. But if there's going to be any receiver to hit, it's going to be Pittman. You want Pittman in your lineups tonight. Andrew Bauer, what's going on, brother? Have a good night, sir. That's what I'm hoping for, a couple non-Colts off TDs. So, yeah, the Colts defense, I think, is going to be a fun play tonight. Hopefully they'll rack up some sacks. Is it too early to start looking towards fantasy playoffs? I'm 7-1 league. Not for you, my friend. 7-1. You should be looking around at schedules. As far as schedules go, look at the Broncos schedule. If you can try and pry Jerry Jeudy off the owner's hands, that's a really good move. Any Bronco, really. If you can wait and be patient with Javonte Williams. I like the Broncos schedule. I also really like the 49ers schedule. If you can somehow lift Elijah Mitchell or George Kittle or Debo or Ayuk, any of those 49ers players. So yeah, you're 7-1. Basically, you need 1 or 2 more wins to get in. That should just happen on the product of you having a good team. So I think you could probably start peeking around the quarter and see what you can line up. I did hear too it was limited practice. I saw that he was limited in practice too. I'm not too concerned about it. I actually had the note up here. Let me see if I can find it, or maybe I didn't put it in. Let me just look for it real quick. So Tua, it says he is limited. It's the ribs and a finger injury. So if anything, I think it's a good thing for him just kind of being just patient here. Mike Gesicki says here that Mike Gesicki noted in his media session that Tua was throwing the ball just fine in practice. So I'm not overly concerned. I think they're just letting those ribs heal up and not trying to stress him too much. Should I drop Michael Gallup? Oh man, I have such a soft spot for Michael Gallup. If Michael Gallup is your 5th or 6th receiver, you probably won't be using Michael Gallup. I guess I'd be curious to know the contents of the rest of your team. Michael Gallup, really. So Michael Gallup's going to be a boom bust flex every week unless Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb go down. Because I really only think there's room for 2 Cowboys receivers to be trusted. And as long as there's 3, we're going to be playing darts with Michael Gallup and Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. So if you had to, I suppose Michael Gallup, if you're not relying on him to start right away, should I pick up Derrick Henry and drop Kareem Hunt? My other running backs are Gibson, Monty, Eckler, and Zach Moss. I am 5-3. That's a tough. I think it's clear to see Kareem Hunt playing before Derrick Henry. If you have an IR spot, I think I'd be fine with this. But you have Gibson, Montgomery, and Eckler and Moss. I mean, you're probably going to be running out Eckler and Moss this week, so I feel good about your running backs. This is kind of a preference call. And so Derrick Henry, if he comes back in that 6 to 7 to 8 week timetable, he's going to be right there for the fantasy playoffs for you. So if you are 5-3, I have a feeling you have a pretty good team. You could probably afford to wait on him. Henry's obviously the more valuable player here. If you get him back, that's a bigger boost than Kareem Hunt. So I think if you can do it, I think I would do it. Whereas Kareem Hunt, dropping Kareem Hunt feels crazy. Are you able to try to make a trade or anything? I guess if you had to, I'm okay with it. You're 5-3, but maybe try and make a move with a trade. Tougher question. Half PPR, flex 2. Half PPR, flex 2. Pollard, Ty Johnson, Tajay Sharp, Chenault. I could drop 1 or 2 of these guys and pick up Van, Jamal, Brian Edwards. Who would you play? That is a tough question. Okay, so half PPR. So I'm probably I like Ty Johnson, but I like him more in full PPR. So I don't think I'm as excited there. So you're probably looking at a guy like Tony Pollard against the Broncos. I could see him having a nice game, but I'm kind of more interested in some of these wide receivers. Brian Edwards could have himself a nice game against the Giants here. Tajay Sharp and Chenault are hard to trust. I actually think Jamal Agnew, like I was talking with a friend today, Jamal Agnew has more value than Laviska Shenault right now. So this is a tough question. Like, to be honest, the safest guy of all these players is probably Tony Pollard, just because I know he's going to get 10 to 12 touches, probably 8 to 10 PPR points, and it's against Denver, at home against Denver. No Von Miller. I could see Tony Pollard having a good game. So I like Pollard the most. And then if you're looking to start a wide receiver, it's probably, I think I'm okay with Tajay Sharp, to be honest with you. He should be a guy that is probably picked up in a lot of 12-man leagues. Tajay Sharp's probably going to be the leading wide receiver target guy. So for me, I'm going to go Pollard and probably Tajay Sharp. It's tough. Half PPRs are a tough question. So I'm going to go with Pollard and Sharp. Do I trust Teddy B versus Cowboys over Big Ben on Monday night? So Big Ben playing the Chicago Bears, that actually feels like a good matchup. But if you think about the Broncos versus the Cowboys are going to score points against the Broncos defense. Teddy Bridgewater is going to have to probably pass the ball. You have opportunity for some garbage time there. So I'm kind of leaning towards Teddy Bridgewater. I'm just looking real quick at the Broncos and seeing how many quarterback points they allow. So the Broncos are one of the stingier teams to the quarterback position. But I still like Teddy here. Chicago Bears, they do allow a good amount of points here, but I think it's going to be a big Najee Harris night. So go with this. Teddy Bridgewater also has potential to throw 2-3 touchdowns. So I'm going to say Teddy has the better ceiling. I'll go with him. Who do you think I could get for Tyler Lockett and Jalen Waddle in trade, both at the wide receiver and running back position? Okay, so that's a fun one. So the way that I do this is if you're trying to do a 2-for-1 situation, I'm going to add up the kind of the points per game for Lockett and the points per game for Waddle. I'm just looking real quick. I don't know if this is a non-PPR question, but let me just look real quick. So Tyler Lockett, averaging probably in a non-PPR league, he's probably around 10 points per game. Jalen Waddle, probably around 8 points a game. So that's 18 points that you're willing to send to somebody. So you're looking to just kind of upgrade Tyler Lockett by just a little bit. So you're probably looking at guys like Marquise Brown, Chris Godwin, CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman Jr. You're looking for someone that's more consistent, maybe Terry McLaurin. Some of the top, I think you could probably cash in Lockett and Waddle for like a top 15 receiver. Look in that range of like wide receiver 10 to 15. That's probably where you want to go. And then equally for a running back, you're probably looking into that especially if the team that has running backs that you like and they need wide receivers, you're probably looking somewhere in that 10 to 15 running back range. So whether that's Darrell Henderson, DeAndre Swift, Damian Harris, Leonard Fournette, if you're looking to move into that, you're probably looking for a guy that's just outside of the top 10 or top 12 at the receiver or running back position. Keep 3, half PPR. Scott, Cooks, Callaway, Michael Pittman Jr., or Kirk Cousins. We're gonna use Michael Pittman Jr. Or Kirk Cousins. Keep 3 PPR. I'm keeping Cousins. I'm gonna keep Pittman Jr. and interesting. So I'm kind of confused here. You can keep a quarterback. Keep 3, half PPR. The one that I like the least is Callaway. So if you're looking just for the flex players, I like Scott, I like Cooks, and I like Pittman Jr. And I'm kind of confused by the Kirk Cousins. Is that you can flex a quarterback there? Never thought I'd be starting Tyrod, Freiermuth, and Agnew in the same. Welcome to Week 9, 2021. Everything is flipped upside down. So again, I like Scott, I like Cooks, I like Michael Pittman Jr. this week. I think all those guys have nice, 10-point floors for half PPR. And Cousins, so I like Cousins. The Ravens defense, the last we saw them, the Bengals had the best of them. They're coming off a bye this week, though, on the road for Cousins too. I'm kind of feeling the 3 flex players there. I traded Terry for DK. Thoughts, PPR. That's fantastic, Aiden. Good trade. Russell Wilson's coming back next week, and DK Metcalf, I think he's second in the NFL for touchdowns right now. I think he's got 8. He's tied with Mike Evans for 8 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp's got 10. But man, by the way, did you guys know Cooper Kupp's on pace for 2,000 receiving yards, 2,000 plus? Like, he's on pace for an insane season right now. What do you think at the wide receiver position? I could get for Dalton Schultz. I would do this trade next week. So hopefully Dalton Schultz goes nuts this week and you can get the max of volume. But what I have learned is that trading tight ends is difficult. There's only a couple tight ends that everybody wants, whether that's Kelsey, Andrews, probably Hawkinson and Pitts. And then after that, you kind of get into some questionable guys, whether it's Gesicki or Uzama or Schultz or Henry or Noah Fant. I guess Darren Waller's a must-own too. So Schultz is probably viewed as a top 10 option right now. As far as a player that you can get for him, if you're trying to get a wide receiver for him, you're probably looking at like a fringe flex player. So a guy like, if this is non-PPR, you could try and get a Chase Claypool. You could try and get a T. Higgins. You could try and get something like Christian Kirk. You're looking at a guy that is probably going to be a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 for your team. I don't think you're going to be able to plug in Schultz for a starter. You're looking at a guy that's probably a top 50 wide receiver, anywhere in that range. So it's not a sexy trade, but you're looking at a guy that you can just add and have as one of your flex weapons. Agnew is a must start. I like Jamal Agnew right now. More so in PPR leagues. I think Agnew, that's where his value lies. But it looks like they're not going to put Chenault at the slot anytime soon. So Agnew has the best value of Jags receivers in PPR leagues. Aiden says he's trying to trade Pitts right now. He's probably going to see double teams and shadow the rest of the season with no Ridley. Most likely. And that's frustrating. He does have a nice schedule coming up, though. I think I covered this the other night. Let me just pull up the Falcons' schedule real quick. Because they play some teams that do allow a fair share of tight end points. So I can see him. The problem with Pitts is he's going to be boom bust. He's going to get you 4 points one week, and you're going to probably turn around and get you 18 the next week. So if you don't want the volatility, try and find a partner for Kyle Pitts. Who do you think I can get for Schultz? Lockett and Jalen Waddle all together. Schultz, Lockett, and Jalen Waddle all together. Now we're kind of talking. We're probably talking about a fringe top 10 player here, essentially moving Lockett and Waddle, which are both kind of wide receiver 3s. And then you get Schultz as a sweetener. You might be able to go talk to the Stephon Diggs owner. Go talk to the A.J. Brown owner. Talk to some, at that point, you're probably looking at talking to a team that, one, doesn't have a lot of wins, but they have a couple good players. So if you're looking at that, you're essentially doing a 3-for-1. So if that's what interests you, you're trying to help a team plug in more starters but take away their best player. So Lockett and Waddle and Schultz, I mean, that could yield Stephon Diggs and Jamar Chase. Perhaps if you're looking at running backs, you could potentially – running backs are tough because that team's probably given a pretty good running back away. So you need to find a team that has like 3 really good running backs. You're probably looking at Aaron Jones. People are kind of frustrated with him for no reason. Darrell Henderson, Ezekiel Elliott. Try the Cordero Patterson owner. I think that would be a fun trade. Even Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb. So if you're doing a 3-for-1, you're looking at a top 5, top 10, somewhere in between 5 and 10 in those positions there. So I think that's what I would do. If you're trying to do a two, you could probably get away with a 2-for-3. And then you're talking about maybe a running back and a wide receiver. So when you do that, you're looking at like a top 20 running back, somewhere between 10 and 20, and then for receiver, somewhere in between 20 and 30. So that's probably 3-for-1s are hard to do. You're probably looking at a 2-for-3 trade. 13 targets last week now versus Bills. And the Bills have that good pass rush. The Bills, one of the best defenses in the league right now. So I do like Jamal Agnew. And Agnew, man, he should be a receiver that should be picked up in all leagues. I know I mentioned this earlier this week, but Judy, Renfro, or Mitchell, full PPR. I will always say Jerry Jeudy. I'm super excited about Jerry Jeudy this week going up against the Cowboys. I think with Diggs probably going up on the outside against Cortland Sutton, you're going to probably see a big Jerry Jeudy game. So he's the one that excites me the most. So Elijah Mitchell, interesting guy because he's not practicing this week. We don't know what he's going to do tomorrow either. But it's a tough matchup, I suppose, going against. It's not a tough matchup. Arizona is a team you want to run the ball on. Just teams really haven't figured that out yet. So on paper, Arizona's like a tough matchup, but the Packers just exposed that last week. You want to run the ball against Arizona. So I would rank them as probably Jeudy, Mitchell, Renfro. But if we get the full clear that Mitchell's good to go, I think Mitchell's probably the safest play. Cousins or Derek Carr? I'm going to go with Derek Carr. I trust him a little bit more. Something weird, with the Henry Ruggs situation this week. I think the Raiders are going to play some inspired ball and kind of come together. I lost Winston and Michael Thomas in the Fellowship League. This is a tough week to own those two. Michael Thomas. I don't think we're going to see Michael Thomas play for the Saints again. I think he gets moved next offseason. Better stash: Ty Johnson, Van Jefferson, Bryan Edwards, Agnew, or Jarrett Patterson. So this is kind of a low volume play, but I think it's Jamal Agnew. If it's full PPR, it's Jamal Agnew. The man's going to be the leading slot guy for it doesn't feel good, but Jamal Agnew, probably the safest guy that you could whip out there. I think I trust him. Otherwise, I like Bryan Edwards. Bryan Edwards has been playing pretty well this season. Maybe he gets a little bit more looks with no Henry Ruggs. Should I be trading Pitts right now? You should probably be asking. It doesn't hurt to see what you can potentially get for Kyle Pitts, especially if you have a good tight end behind him. Pitts is going to be volatile this season. The rest of the season here, he's going to be a guy that's going to get you 5 or 6 points on a bad week and upwards of 18 plus on a good week. So if you don't want the volatility of Pitts, I think you should probably start finding some trade suitors. Sanders or Hunter Renfro, half PPR. So Renfro's better definitely for full PPR, and Sanders with last week's disappointment, I'm a little concerned. But watch, if no Cole Beasley hasn't practiced today or yesterday. If Cole Beasley sits, I'm going to go with Sanders. Otherwise, I think Renfro's fine, but I'm going to say Sanders. We are keeping Winston on the roster for emotional support. Yeah, man. So I'm going to get off here a couple more minutes if you guys want to fire up your final questions here, but I got to get going here. We got a game in like 10 minutes. Doggers, can you get Bateman? Yeah, Rashad Bateman's a fun pickup. Status on Stafford. McVay said that he's going to play. I think it's sore back. It's just kind of veteran rest, so I'm not too concerned. No Bateman for Daggers. Chuba Scott or Gordon. Boston Scott for me against the Chargers. Batum. Mitchell, McNichols, Herbert, Tony, Javante. Elijah Mitchell. Assuming Elijah Mitchell's good to go, cleared to play, Mitchell has the best matchup. Cardinals' run defense is not great. Yep, I like Agnew. And Kadarius Toney. So with that, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys so much for your time. If you guys are new to the channel, definitely subscribe. Check out the TikTok, wherever the links are down here below. We got a lot of stuff going on there. But enjoy the game, Jets, Colts. Thank you for hanging out. We'll probably do. I got a free weekend this weekend, so I might do live streams Friday and Saturday night. So we'll catch you guys in one of those. Thank you again so much for your time. I'm gonna sneak one more question in here. Damian Harris or Josh Jacobs, half PPR. Give me Josh Jacobs. I like Josh Jacobs. Harris is fun. He's on a touchdown streak, but Josh Jacobs coming off a bye. Give me some of that steam. So we'll see. But anyways, have a good night, guys. Enjoy the game. We'll see you on the other side. Adios.